How many people pay attention to CBS, ESPN, Fox, Twitter, YouTube channels that the Big 12 has done? They ain't worth a shit and they ain't doing nothing. How many people have heard that? I'm sick of hearing it. Let's talk about it. Hello, Big 12 Nation. I'm Joey Foster. That over there is Mr. Shane. What's going on, Shane?
Not much. Talked to you this morning, and you definitely had a wild hair up your ass. So
I do. I've got a wild hair up my ass, and it's I'm a college football fan, but I get so sick of this bullshit of hearing. Well, the Big 12 is probably a group of five now. Come on. How many group of five teams make $50 million a year? Does anybody know how much Liberty made last year about Appalachian State? It's like 7-8 million. We are not a group of five. I get sick of hearing how well the television ratings and videos came out today, even on this network, about television ratings in the Big 12 and how without Texas and Oklahoma, we're doomed. We're never going to make it. I don't know how in the hell we did anything at West Virginia before the Big 12, because I could have swore we had pretty good television video viewing audience. I could have swore we are the largest social media following. I could have swore we have like 1.8 million that view our games on a regular basis. I don't understand what the hell everybody's talking about. The Big 12 is going to be able to hold its own. Look, you put any team in the Big 12, and I'm talking about Power 5 teams that have been there for a while, and I'm talking about the four newcomers from the Pac-12. I'm not talking about Houston and Cincinnati and UCF and BYU. They've got to grow and to do, not BYU in this case, but the other three have some growing to do to build a television audience, right? We all know this, but the potential's there. But guess what? Kansas State has a viewing audience. Kansas does in basketball that's bigger than anybody else's. And guess what? They'll translate over to football because they got a decent football program now. West Virginia's always had a great following. And if you don't believe me, just look around the YouTube channels and the number of subscribers they have, and this channel, we haven't even really worked real hard to build a channel, and we have 1,700 subscribers. So,
right.
I mean, just realize that, or I'm not talking about this channel, not the Big 12 channel. I'm talking about the Mountaineer channel, the West Virginia channel, because we're on the Big 12 channel tonight, the Big 12 show. But I get tired of hearing it because guess what? Texas Tech can draw a crowd, right? They can draw a good television viewing audience. West Virginia can do it. Kansas State can do it. Kansas can do it. Oklahoma State can do it. TCU can do it. I don't care what anybody says that the Big 12 is done and they're a group of five and they won't have any television viewing audience. I have to tell you, somehow ESPN and Fox and all of them totally disagree with your dumbasses, because guess what? They give us a television contract without Oklahoma and Texas. Can you imagine that, Shane? For some reason, they give us a television contract without Oklahoma and Texas, and there's nobody going to be watching us.
I think why the hell would they do that? You need to compare viewership at times. Some of the times for the a lot of those, scores, the viewer, how many million viewers or 500,000 viewers, it's a hell of a lot different if you have a noon game versus a 7 p.m. game. Okay, it's different if you have to go to ESPN Plus and watch it versus ESPN2. So there is some, I was told this a long time ago, and it's the truth. Never trust numbers, because you can torture numbers to lie and tell them what you want them to tell you. So, Yeah, you can bend them, and I'm going to give everybody a clear example of that here in just a second. But I'm working on posting a link right now, not in your chat, in another chat. Sorry about that. But I do want to share something with everyone.
So this is pretty neat because you hear this all the time. Well, the worst academic conference by far is the Big 12. Well, okay. Maybe if you look at rankings of academic rankings that are taken over a big long thing, but guess what? There's teams in the Big 12 that it's not their motto to bring in only the brightest and best. It's their motto to educate America,
Educate
to
everyone.
educate
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You know, our motto
Yeah.
at Western University is to educate Appalachia. And guess what? We have no other universities we can send them to. When they enroll at Western University, they get to go to Western University. And if they can't make it, if they can't survive the college life, if they can't hack it, and they get put out, they just get put out. If they quit, they just quit. That hurts our academic rating. But look here. But look at this. I'm gonna bring this up. How about this, guys? You want to talk about things? Let's look at our educational mission, crucial for the state.
Yeah. Rhodes Scholars.
Then
Yeah.
let's look at Rhodes Scholars, top 25 schools after WVU in the FBS, top 25 programs after WVU. Let's see how many teams are on here talk about us. Nebraska, Utah, Notre Dame. You know, I mean, you look down through here. There's Northwestern, Wake Forest, Alabama, Florida, Kansas State, Indiana, Washington State. These are programs after us in Rhodes Scholars. How about this one right here? How about the programs before us? Okay. Well, what about before you? Well, here's where Western Union ranks right there out of all of them. The number one school for Rhodes Scholars is Stanford. And down here, which is probably what, 15th or 17th or somewhere around there, is 24th Rhodes Scholars with West Virginia. Then you have everybody else.
Yeah. They're
Some
like
teams
tied
that
for
are ahead.
fifth. Yeah.
Notable teams that are ahead of West Virginia, Oklahoma and Texas are two of those teams ahead of West Virginia, right? Kansas is ahead of West Virginia, and so is Arizona, and so is Cal. But West Virginia has 24. And guess what? West Virginia and Cal are tied with 24. Arizona's got one more, and Kansas has three more. Kansas is a great program, no doubt about it. But you talk about educating Appalachia. These are Appalachia kids coming to Western University, winning Rhodes Scholars. 24 of them, guys. Now, I'm sure they weren't all for West Virginia. Don't get me wrong there. But what I'm saying is you think we've got this piss poor education system? Bull crap. You think we have this piss poor viewing audience? Bull crap. You think we have this piss poor teams? We proved that we don't. TCU proved it to you 2 years ago when they went to and beat Michigan in a playoff game. And I watched that game. I didn't think it was that close. I thought TCU just laid it down to Michigan. The score might have been close, but TCU dominated Michigan. They were much faster. They had better play calls. They were outcoached, everything. Michigan just lost that game. Now, the next week, TCU fell apart against Georgia, but so does everybody else.
Right.
Look, the bottom line is you have your elite teams, right? You have your Ohio States and Michigans in the Big Ten. You have your Georgias and your Alabamas in the SEC. You have your Clemson and Florida State in the ACC. And in the Pac-12, you had your USC and you had your Oregon, who are now gone, who are all gone from the Pac-12. Pac-12 is now more or less the Big 12.
It's cyclic. USC was hot back when they had Reggie Bush. They went cold for a little bit. I think they're going to heat back up. You had West Virginia in like 05 through 2012 or 13. They were the hot ticket for 8 years. And then, Virginia Tech back in like 03 they had a solid couple years. Pitt in 80, with Tony Dorsett in 76? With Dan Marino, they were a hot ticket. Penn State, 82, they were good. 88, they were good. Oh, you didn't talk about Ohio State in the 80s, and you didn't talk about them in the 90s.
In all honesty, you didn't talk about Alabama and Georgia too much then.
Alabama was garbage.
Right, the teams that were talked about back then.
No.
Hey, guess what? West Virginia got mentioned more because guess what we did? We played in big bowl games that Alabama and Georgia didn't back then. We played in Fiesta Bowls. We played in Peach Bowls. We played in Sugar Bowls back when Alabama and Georgia were not. So don't think that these tides can't turn and all of a sudden Big 12 is dominating college football. Then what the hell is everybody going to say? What are they going to say? Well, I don't know how they're doing it. They don't get no viewers compared to Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan.
You know, hey guys, BYU beat the pants off of Michigan in '84. You don't talk about that. You know, you don't talk about, going back to, I mean, this is going way back 70, 75, 80 years. Army was, Army and Holy Cross were rolling over people. William and Mary was a big name. Princeton.
Harvard and Yale. And Yale.
Yeah, they have some of the most, they have the most championships if you look at it on paper. Frank change. And I did a show about that. Things change. And the only constant is change.
I like what Don Johnson says here. They're full of crap. I'm sick of these haters and don't think for a minute the SEC and Big Ten are not too big to fail. It may be in the very near future the Big 12 will be great to watch. Exactly right, Don Johnson. Exactly.
Don, you're so right.
The best conference. Listen, here's what I know. Alabama, let's just say Alabama and Mississippi State come on TV, right? And West Virginia and TCU come on at the same time. Let's say I'm not a West Virginia fan or a Big 12 fan at all. Let's say I'm over in the Big 10 somewhere, and there's no good Big 10 games on, and I've got a choice. I can watch Alabama or Mississippi State, or I can watch West Virginia and TCU. I'm watching West Virginia and TCU. Why the hell would I watch Alabama and Mississippi State? I mean, there's no need in watching that. It's in the Big 12 there's competition.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you another question. This. But everybody watching, put in the comments if you agree or disagree. If you had, now the ACC has some good matchups, all right? But they're not taking a crap on the ACC, and they're not making the money that the Big 12 is. So here's what I'm going to propose to you. If I had a pick watching non-conference games out of the Big 10, ACC, we're not going to talk about the Big 12. Big 12 or Pac-10, Jiminy Christmas. I'm talking about just the SEC, okay? ACC, Big 10. Who am I going to watch? I'm going to watch the SEC. It's a much better product than what the Big 10's putting out. Then after the SEC, I'm watching the ACC because the teams are closer. There's a closer matchup in talent, and there's more parity. And it's a better product than watching the three teams rotate through and beat up on everybody in the Big 10. That's just it. I'm taking a crap on the Big 10. I'm sorry.
I'm like you because everybody used to talk about Big 10 West is terrible. They're absolutely horrible. Big 10 West is the worst division in college football. And it's true, they are. Guess what? Big 10 East ain't much better. You take out Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. What do you got? What do you have in the Big 10 East? Is there anybody there better than the top five teams in the Big 12?
There's nobody there
better than the top five.
Like a B minus, depending on the year, Michigan State team, and then out on the other side you have Wisconsin, and then everybody else is just corn and dog poop, guys. I'm sorry. Rutgers was great with Greg Schiano, but they're a far day away from having Greg Schiano compete for Big East championship. They're a homecoming game on everybody's schedule, and that's just it.
Here's what I think. This is what I say to all the media personality, ESPN, CBS, everybody that wants to make this stuff happen. SEC commissioner, Big 10 commissioner. Here's what you all can do. This is Joey Foster's advice to you. Go ahead and take Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, and form you a league and just say, these are the best teams, and all the rest of you go over here and play. Because I guarantee you, which one's going to make more money? Us over here, because we're going to have more of the viewing audience. I guarantee you. Take out the Blue Bloods. Take the Blue Bloods and put them in a conference all by themselves. Oh, they'll pull some eyeballs. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But guess what? The rest of the teams will pull more eyeballs. 100% more eyeballs. So go ahead. Go ahead and say all you want to. The Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan are the big dogs of college football and pull all the viewers.
Yeah,
I'll prove
it's
you
just
wrong, and especially prove you
yeah.
wrong 10 years from now when the tables have flipped and there's 4 more big dogs up on that stage.
Yeah,
Bottom
it's going to
line.
rotate. Like you could maybe Ole Miss will roll in there and have a couple good years, or I'm just pulling. Georgia, they're on the upswing. Penn State kind of plateaued. I think they're kind of sniffing the top two, and then they're way back in third as far as I'm concerned in the
Yeah.
Big Ten. But
So
Tim, what's he saying? Yeah,
it takes us for the NFL to come calling for some of those high-end coaches, and guess what? They'll be in the
The
same boat
dominoes
Alabama's
fall,
in.
Tim.
Future's not
Tim,
certain.
you're so
Exactly.
right.
Hey, look, Alabama was a joking stock, the little laughing
Yeah,
stock of
dynasty
college football before Nick
is
Saban.
over. Yeah, the
They were
dynasty's
horrible.
over, guys.
And guess what? Georgia might have been good under Mark Richt, and they're really good right now. But that coach, if an NFL team calls him, he's going to go. I don't care how committed he is and how much money they hand him. Hey, it's NFL calling. So there's a difference there. And the same way, Jim Harbaugh's gone from Michigan now. What was Michigan before Jim Harbaugh got there? A pile of garbage. Saban's gone from Alabama now. What was Alabama before Saban got there? A pile of garbage. So go ahead and talk about the SEC and Big Ten all you want to. Their days are really numbered. And I got another comment to put up here by Don Johnson. He says another thing, Timothy, the SEC and Big Ten aren't loaded with teams better than the Big 12. In fact, half their teams wouldn't be in the top 5 of the Big 12 now. Exactly right. Exactly right. Let's take the bottom of the SEC. Just for instance, midpoint. Actually, you could take 4th place on down and put them in the SEC, right? You could take Florida, South Carolina, all these SEC teams and put them over in the Big 12. South Carolina and Florida would not finish any better in the Big 12 than they did in the SEC. They would not finish any better. They'd be at the bottom of the Big 12. Same way, Big 10, all those Big 10 West teams and half of the Big 10 East teams, put them in the Big 12, they're going to finish at the bottom. The Big 12 is just as good of a conference as the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 10. And I argue better than the ACC, and I argue the Big 12 is better than the Big 10. Now, I won't go as far as saying we're better than the SEC, and here's why.
No,
There are
we're
several
not.
teams in the SEC. There are several teams in the SEC, for instance, LSU, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, that could turn it on any day, and they're really good teams, right? But they don't have those teams in the Big 10 outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. There's nobody else in the Big 10 that's that great. They would all
you can
finish at the bottom of the Big 10.
You can plug, 4, through 10, and in the SEC, and they could win the Big 12. You could not do that, as Don is, I think, pointing out. You could not do that with the Big 10. You can't have a Northwestern come in and compete. They're going to get hammered. You can't have, Rutgers come in and compete because they're not. It's not going to happen, guys. Your Wisconsin, your Michigan State will come in and compete, but other than that, guys, it's just not apples to apples. It's not the same. Now the SEC the ACC still. I think the Big 12, a lot of Big 12 teams, if they were to slide in the ACC, they would have an easier road to hoe than they would in the Big 12. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I agree 100%.
And I'm talking the top third. 6 teams could go in and win if they could beat Florida State, and Clemson. I think they could split those pretty easy. Oklahoma State, Utah, even Coach Prime in Colorado.
Let me ask you a question. Top 3 programs in the Big 12 last year. The top 3: Texas. Oh gosh, I lost my train. I lost 2 out. Who else was in there? Who Texas played for the Big 12 championship?
Oklahoma State.
They beat them. Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So you take
Yeah.
Texas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Let's just take those three teams. Florida State was the best team in the ACC last year. If Florida State would have been in the Big 12, they would have finished fourth, maybe even fifth. I think they might have even lost to West Virginia.
You know what? Before the quarterback got hurt, yeah.
Florida State was a good team. Don't get me wrong, but they weren't better than everybody in the Big 12.
No, they weren't better than Oklahoma State. Now, beginning the season, the Florida State and Oklahoma State played. I'm taking Florida State. End of the season, Oklahoma State. Florida State is an outlier in the ACC. Okay, they have, since Bobby Bowden arrived and since he's retired and passed away, they still have that clout because they were legitimate national title contenders or in the conversation or preseason top 10 from 88 until 5-10 years ago, and then they got hot again. Guys, that is consistency. Alabama, not so much. Now, for the past 10 years, Alabama has been that. But look at Florida State over 30 years, 40 years. Guys, Penn State hasn't been like that. They had 15 years of the doldrums. They had terrible, terrible years. Michigan, come on, they're hot recently, but they weren't that great under Rich Rod. They weren't that great under Brady Hoke. Guys, it's not as, Florida State gets a lot of crap and it's undeserved. Same with Miami. You can dislike the culture, you can dislike the swagger, you can dislike all that stuff that Miami had in the 80s, the 90s. They were consistent for, about the same period of time Florida State was. So Clemson had a few years there. Texas, they even were down on the dumps a few years. They had Mac Brown, they were looking good, and then they had a losing season. They changed coaches a lot. So you have to look. Everybody has a really short little blinders. They can see. It's like having lights. You can only see just a little bit in front of you guys in a storm. You got to look over like a 40, 50-year period and look at the holistic, as a conference. Big Ten, there were some years they were down where the SEC dominated, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 dominated. If you remember, before the Pac-12 folded, the Pac-12 was year in and year out in the championship hunt with USC, with, Oregon. Stanford even was decent from here and now and then. Cal even had a top 25 year here and there. So they just had a downslide. It happened at a bad time when, they were up for contract negotiation. I think they waited a little too long and they got shot in the foot. They crumbled. It happens. But guys, the sky isn't falling. It's not that bad. Now, if the ACC were to break up, I think the dominoes would start to fall. I would see some teams getting, wanting to jump from the Big 12. I know West Virginia would be one of them. Kansas and Oklahoma would probably Oklahoma State would want to. Guys, if that happens, you're going to see a seismic shift. But I just think right now, the Big Ten and the SEC are having this conference, this alliance, I guess I should say, in order to put some bumpers on NIL, because it's the Wild West.
I think we're headed for a 3-team conference, three conferences of 20 teams each, maybe 22 teams each.
20 to 24. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think we've got that. So that's why I think the Big 12 is safe, because the ACC is just not safe right now. I just don't see that. I'm behind on comments. I want to get some of these. So Kelly says West Virginia was a PS Bowl champion back then too. I have a PS Bowl championship hat to prove it, signed by my good friend Del Wolfley. Yeah, Kelly. So speaking of Del Wolfley,
Yep.
we're going to have a remembrance show, or actually a week, where we're going to remember Del Wolfley. We're going to talk about him on the Mountaineers show on Monday night. Frank Pierce is going to talk about it on Wednesday night. And on Friday night, we're working on having a show where a lot of former players, coaches, family members of Del Wolfley there as well, so that we can all call in and talk about what Del Wolfley meant to us, or talk about watching him and stuff, or the players can talk about how he got them to West Virginia, maybe, or what he taught them while they were there. But I'm trying to get some of these comments. Let me get up to here and make sure. So we've got quite a few. Let's see. I'm looking because we're talking to each other. Okay, so let's see what Don Johnson says here. Honestly, I believe the Big 12 is going to have many great games this year.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, the SEC and Big 12 will not have as many great games to watch this year. So the Big 12, yeah, last year there were a lot of really good games out of conference that aren't there this year for the Big 12. But West Virginia still has two. You got Penn State and Pitt. So that's two great out of conference games for West Virginia. Texas Tech's got to play. My goodness, man, my mind's going blank here.
Let me pull them up
on some of these teams, but there are some good out of conference games this year. Not as many as last year. I agree with you, Don. And Timothy says, in my opinion, I think the Big 12 will be fine in the near future and beyond. This conference is more competitive than the other two, SEC and Big 10, from top to bottom, I'm saying. And that's what we're all saying. Look, and I think here's what a lot of them will say. This is what ESPN, CBS, Fox, and other people around YouTube and podcasts will say. You're right. The Big 12 is the best conference, top to bottom, as far as competition. The problem is they're all B-minus teams. I don't get that. How are we B-minus teams? If Georgia's an A team, and Oklahoma's an A team, Texas is an A team, and Penn State's an A team. If these are all A teams, then guess what? West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech are all A teams because we've all beat them. We've all beat them like a drum. I mean, we beat them pretty badly on the field.
You're not even talking about basketball.
No, that's
basketball is it's head. Big 12 is head and shoulders this year better than any other conferences.
Not just this year, every year.
Well, I mean, this year it's just blatant. I mean, how many teams are in the top 25? It was at one point 9.
Yeah,
9 teams, and that's with West Virginia beating some of the top 25 at a pitiful 7-14 record or 7-13 record. They're beating some of the ranked teams they're eating their own, and they still have that presence in the top 25 like they do. So, Joey, congratulations on getting 200 followers. Yeah,
no, I
awesome.
appreciate that, Jackson. But here's the thing about it: I don't use Twitter. I'm never on there. I read a few tweets that come in, but I do not use it. I never tweet. So there's no need in building me to 1,000 followers on Twitter. I'm never on there. I'm never on Facebook anymore. Facebook, there's like 100,000 people. So I just don't do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. We're going to be doing another show here, fan to fan. It's just going to be a little lighter, not quite so much bitching and griping and serious stuff. So the lighter side, if you like sports and anything in between, you just what fans will talk about. Because I've been to sports games, and you tailgate. You're not talking about football for 4 hours. You talk about all kinds of stuff. So just think of a tailgate where anything might come up. You don't know what the hell we're going to talk about.
So Shane and I have talked about this, starting our own show on our own channel, off of this network, onto our own channel. But we just have some ideas that we wouldn't do on this channel, right? We want to talk serious football here. But over there, we want to cut up and carry on. We want to do some characters. We want to do some. Anybody ever watch SEC shorts or Clint Foster that does some of the Big 12 shorts over there?
Yeah, he's
Funny
great.
skits. We want to break our show up into skits, maybe 10, 15-minute segments where we do a skit. And I might be I might put me on a UCF fan hat, and he might put him on a Iowa State fan hat, and we go at each other about who's the better program or whatever, just having fun and things and stuff. But we're going to be geared a lot towards Mountaineer football because we're Mountaineer fans. But at the same time, we love Big 12 football, and I'll fight tooth and nail for Big 12 football. And I know that Big 12, a lot of media personalities in Big 12 got mad. I know this for a fact because I got text messages and phone calls and everything else from some of these media personalities talking about why does West Virginia want to leave the Big 12 back when all this conference realignment was going on. And everybody was talking about West Virginia to the ACC. I said, we don't want to move. We're happy. We're happy right in the Big 12. The problem is, the difference is, if the ACC would invite us, we would go because closer to our school and more rivalries, obviously. So that means more money for West Virginia. So, yeah, we would move. But we don't want to. Look, West Virginia loves the Big 12. I think TCU loves the Big 12. I think Oklahoma State loves the Big 12. One thing I like about Oklahoma State, they have compassion and they have staying power. Oklahoma State, you can guarantee them for 8 games a year. Under Mike Gundy, they just dominate. They're just a really good team. They could beat anybody you could bring Alabama in there every other year. I guarantee you Oklahoma's going to win some of them games. They're going to win.
Yeah. Those Cowboys
every other
can play
game
some ball
against Alabama or Georgia. They can play some ball. So, that's why I love the Big 12. There are some good teams in the Big 12. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech. Hey, guess what? I don't know if anybody's told you or not. Kansas is a pretty good damn team in football now. So we got Kansas now to talk about. We got West Virginia. We got Utah coming in. You know how good of a program Utah is? Arizona. Anybody know how good Arizona was last year? Colorado. The Colorado's won a couple of national championships, and they used to be a powerhouse in college football. Can they get that back? I think so. So, Kelly, we didn't say, and here's why I didn't say, we're still planning it. We don't know if we're going to do it next week or the following week. But if we do it next week, then Monday night, we will do a little tribute show for Dale Whipley. The show will be all about Dale and Mountaineer football. On Wednesday night, Frank Fear will also do a show about Dale Whipley, have some guests on that were friends of Dale's and things like that. And then on Friday night will be the big show, a complete remembrance of Dale with all the former players. We do know that layout's going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but not sure if it's going to be next week or the following week. So, just you'll find out. Hopefully, I'll know something tomorrow night and announce it in my show tomorrow night. So, anyway, I've been wound up, and I haven't let you talk much, and I'm sorry.
No, I'm just sucking it in because I'm a very loyal fan, and I would support any conference we went to as long as we get to go and we're competitive. Let's go Mountaineers. Tim, I will agree with you. Now, here's the thing. Joey had said he'd like to go to the ACC. I would have before the shine start coming off the SEC, and that being Florida State being snubbed. I think the Big 12 is in a better position financially. So I would like to see the Big 12 absorb some of the schools that the Mountaineers have played in the past and have a West Coast and like Midwest conference, West Virginia go as far as Iowa State go as far east because it's not fair for UCF financially and for those kids because I have to travel for work. And you think, it's only going to take so long to get to the West Coast. No, it takes 8.5 hours is the shortest flight if you have a connection to get to like Eugene, Oregon, or or Corvallis, or I have to go to Portland or Corvallis or somewhere out there. That is a long trip. So think of these football players. The traveling is exhausting. Then they got a ball.
Mhm.
They got to play the ball game, and then they got to travel back. So doing that a couple times a week. Think of basketball. You have a midweek game. You have classes early in the morning. You get back late at night. You're tired. Those basketball players are lanky. They don't fit in the stuff that they have to fly in. So it's not conducive for a fair and equitable, competitive environment for these kids, for UCF and West Virginia and Cincinnati to be traveling like they are. It's just not. So with that being said, I would love to see Virginia Tech. Then I would love to see, Louisville. And then third, I'd like to see Pitt on the regular. I know Joey has it in the other order, but those are the schools I like to watch West Virginia play, and throw in, maybe a Boston College, but I don't think Boston College would make it into the.
Let me ask you a question, though,
realignment.
Shane. How would you like a schedule 1 year? How would you like for a West Virginia schedule to come out 1 year, and the out of conference schedule? Let's just say out of conference was Kansas State and 2 cupcakes, and then the in conference was Pitt, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Florida State. I'm just thinking, that would be a great schedule, and all East Coast.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm not saying those are better programs than what are in the Big 12.
No, they're not.
Is those are East Coast programs that we can drive to, we can get to, and fairly easily if we want to go to a game.
And you're right. And we're talking
interesting.
This is a Big 12 show, and we're talking about fans. It's easier for people from Oklahoma State to drive an hour to Moore, Oklahoma, and watch Oklahoma play Oklahoma State. It's a lot easier for Iowa State fans to drive in the Midwest and catch another game. Baylor and TCU. I know Texas is a huge state. It's going to be a drive, but it's more comparable to West Virginia fans driving down, to watch VTech play, or them driving up to Pittsburgh, or driving over, 4 hours to North Carolina, or, it makes more sense. Cincinnati's just a stone's throw away. So that's the closest game we have that fans can drive and catch a game, because, we're talking because West Virginia is the school that we have the most experience with. But I know Kansas State, it's not far from Manhattan, Kansas to Lawrence, Kansas. It's not. I've driven it. It's not far.
No, it's not. It's not. And and so it's like this. If you ask Iowa State and Iowa State fans, would you rather be in the Big 12 or Big 10? Well, they're going to say Big 10 because guess what? That's where a lot of their rivalries are.
Yeah.
That's where Iowa State is. That's where Nebraska is. That's Iowa State's rivalry games. And the fans would be more excited to be in the Big 10 than Big 12.
Yep.
Same way with schools like Arizona coming into Big 12. Ask them, would you rather have a Pac-12 team and you're playing Cal and all of them, or would you rather be in the Big 12? But they're going to tell you, well, I'd rather have the Pac-12 when we're playing Cal and UCLA and all them teams, because that's where all their students come from. That's where their fan base is. Obviously, that's what they want. All of our fan base is in North Carolina. West Virginia's fan base, the biggest fan base is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, they have.
We don't play any games in North Carolina. And so,
So that's because displacement of alumni. So they graduate, they go to find jobs in Pittsburgh, Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, South Carolina. They go down there. They go to Georgia or Atlanta. The fans of West Virginia football occupy that whole area there. And I'm sure that's true for TCU. TCU probably has fans all through Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, that whole area. It's scattered. It's like a shotgun blast. It's going to go so far, but you're going to have that area that it encompasses. University of Houston, You know, you can't tell me all the fans are from Houston. Those
Of course not.
alumni and fans are all over Louisiana, you know, South Texas, you know, Cincinnati. You got people that live in Kentucky that are fans of Cincinnati. You have people that live in
Right.
Ohio. You got people that live in Southern Indiana, you know, that went
West
to
Virginia.
Cincinnati, West Virginia. You know, it's and then same with Utah, BYU, Colorado. Colorado is another one where, you know, Colorado is a state of transients, just like Florida. People move there from other places. So it is what it is. I'm excited. I think that the product is good. We have to see what the numbers will show us going forward. And I think you have to compare 7 p.m. games to 7 p.m. games. You can't compare a 7 p.m. game to a 1 p.m. game, you know.
I'm going to post a link in StreamYard if anybody like to come in and make it because this is a call-in show, and I completely forgot to post a link. I apologize to you. Hey, I ain't got nowhere to go. Y'all come on in here. We'll talk as long as you want to. But I do want to say this. So Timothy had put this up, said, I don't know. I know we were discussing football mostly, but just think about the basketball team.
Tim,
and I think
that.
Shane alluded to that. Shane
Mhm.
alluded to
Yeah.
that. And speaking of basketball, even though it's the Big 12 show, I will say this. So Josh Eilert, the interim head coach at West Virginia, announced today that Jesse Edwards is making some good progress and is coming along. And Acook, or however you pronounce it, will be back this weekend. So he'll be back Saturday against Texas, right? Texas.
I'm going to be going to that game. I'm going to take a bunch of kids down, and we're going to go watch the Mountaineers play at home. Should be a good time. You know, Tim, talking. I'm going to talk to this point. Alesh Khan played for the Mountaineers for 1 year from Czechoslovakia. He was 7'1". He was my roommate for a little while. He had a hell of a time fitting in vehicles. Okay, so imagine
Harley
flying.
Dad. Hey, buddy. Appreciate you being here, buddy.
Harley Dad, how you doing, buddy? So imagine trying to fly and just being that uncomfortable. Okay, and that's just a 7-footer, but you know your 6'6" guy is going to be hurting too. So hey, it's Jackson Johnson.
Hey Shane, hey Joe. How's
Been
it
a while,
going,
buddy?
Gents?
Good,
not
buddy.
much.
What's going on, man?
Not much. I just got back from calling in on the Ohio State Michigan Skull session. How you guys doing tonight?
We're doing good. What do you think about? Are we? Is it too early for people to take a big crap on the Big 12?
I think people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater on it.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
agree.
mean,
I agree.
I mean, because if you're gonna ask me whether like the Big 12 is screwed, the perfect time would have been like July, August 2021.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
because like Brett Yormark has taken advantage of the situation at hand, even when all the odds were against the Big 12.
Yes.
I think they're fine. The ACC, I'm not so sure. I think they're screwed. I don't know how bad they're screwed. Jeff Hafley.
Well, if you think about it, let's just think about it. Let's just think about it and say, okay, 2 teams leave the ACC, Florida State and one other team. Let's just say Clemson. Florida State and Clemson. Who's left out there to replace those teams with? Appalachian State and Memphis? That's not going to bring your TV viewers. And that's the only 2 programs, maybe Tulane. I mean, I don't know. Just, you know, they took in SMU, they took in Cal. That's not anything that's going to elevate the ACC anytime soon. Not that they're not good programs, but I just wonder if the ACC loses too, it's not like the Big 12. When we lost Oklahoma and Texas, it was a big blow. But there was a lot to pull from out there, right? There was a lot of good programs in the pool then. There's not any of them good programs out there now. They're winning. Sure, Appalachian State's winning. Liberty's winning. Memphis is winning. Sure, there's some good programs. Problem is they're not competing against Appalachia or against Houston and UCF and Cincinnati anymore because they're out of their league. Or BYU. They're not competing against them anymore. So they're beating teams that Cincinnati and UCF and Houston beat anyway. So now, if you pull them into a Power 5 conference, we've seen how bad the 4 newcomers did in the Big 12 this year. What's it going to be for Appalachian State, Liberty, and Memphis? In any conference. So there's nothing left for ACC to pull in. And so I worry about the ACC. I don't want any conferences off. I didn't want the Pac-12 to off. I sit
Me
here
neither.
and wished every day something would happen to keep Pac-12
Yeah, Oregon
alive.
State breaks my heart in Corvallis that they're in the situation there.
Right.
Jackson, I have a question
I
for you.
hate that.
Your Mark, being as aggressive as he is, he will smell blood in the water
Mhm.
if any of those teams leave, and he's going to be jumping on teams. What teams does he go for first?
I would say Louisville, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, and maybe a North Carolina State or a Miami. I'm not too sure about that 4th team.
That's the order that
Well, I
I
would
would
think-
prefer. I would pick Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Pitt third, and then I would exchange Miami for Pitt if Miami was available. Pitt would be like the 3rd or 4th on my list, just because just fan base. I mean, they just don't have a huge fan base, and I live in Western Pennsylvania. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I would do
because
it
I
like
mean,
this. I would look at the number of teams there are in the Midwest and West that like that are close together there. Like Oklahoma State and Arizona. Those I would look at those schools and say, count those schools, see how many of them we have, and then say, okay, let's even it up over on the East Coast. And if we need, if the ACC is falling apart and we can get some of those teams, who do we get on the East Coast that number one is going to draw eyeballs? And the teams that would draw eyeballs would be any team that has a rivalry or a history with West Virginia, obviously, for the Big 12.
the
That's the
backyard
only
brawl
Eastern
brings
team.
eye.
So you got to
The
bring
backyard
Pitt.
brawl
You got to
brings
bring
eyes
Virginia
and
Tech.
ears. Yep, West
Yeah.
Virginia, Virginia Tech, the Keg and Nails, Louisville, Cincinnati, and
And Miami.
you know,
Miami
Yeah.
was a huge rivalry back when Miami was in the Big East. Miami and West Virginia was a huge rivalry that sold out both stadiums. It didn't matter where we played at. It sold out both stadiums, and there was a television audience to watch it. And so, not as big as Pitt and West Virginia as far as a rivalry, obviously, but just as many eyeballs, if not more, when we played Miami. So I look at it that way and say,
I'm going to
that.
tell you, as a fan of West Virginia, from like 92 to currently, from my perspective, over that period of time, I think there's more rivalry with Louisville and there's more rivalry with Virginia Tech over those past 25 years than Pitt. It's been West Virginia winning most of those games. I don't think it's as competitive. Now, take away the 07, but Jackson. So do you think your Mark is going to, has he probably reached out? He's probably talked to these presidents, and this is all just me thinking. There's no facts behind it, guys. I'm just telling you. This is
I've got
Yeah.
a feeling he probably is, but if he hasn't, he will eventually. Because I mean,
Yeah.
he's gonna bring back some rivals. He brought back BYU, Utah. He's gonna bring back the backyard brawl on an annual basis. He's gonna bring back the West Virginia, Virginia Tech rivalry, the Louisville, Cincinnati rivalry, and Joey. I remember I called in on Mountaineers Live, and it was you, Tide Guy, and the Wolfman. Rest in peace to the Wolfman. I remember saying that this was a little bit before Utah got added, that I thought the Big 12 would add Utah because they realized they were going to lose the Red River rivalry. They were going to lose the Bedlam. I mean, they could sell Kansas State, Iowa State as the premier rivalry all they want. I mean, I know college football nuts like me will watch Kansas State, Iowa State, but
will too.
not the normies or most of the country's going to care about. They're just going to be like, ugh, meh. So what's the rivalry everybody's going to get excited about? BYU, Utah. Exactly.
I agree.
BYU.
And the backyard brawl being an out of conference game is great for the Big 12. Problem is next year it ends for a few years. Okay, we play this year, and we play next year, and then we're done until 2028 or 2029. I don't remember
Yeah,
when it's supposed to
Alabama's on
come
the
back.
schedule.
And who knows what happens between now and then with conference realignment? Hell, Pitt might be in the Big Ten by then, and we don't live to play them, which would
2029.
suck.
Yeah,
So,
I
so,
don't know
so
if they'll take the Big Ten
I
will
just
take them.
Well, I'm not saying they would, but Pitt is an AAU school, and they are very high on academics. They
Yeah.
are one of the top programs in the country,
Yes.
so they've got a big leg up to go into the Big Ten. Not saying they would take them, but yeah. So I like see John Harry says, "Evening fellas, if ACC loses to FSU, I'm fairly confident 5 or 7 are following them out the door." I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Who does the
I mean,
SEC and Big Ten pick up? And what's left on the table for the Big 12 to gobble up? That's what I don't know. Because Florida
like
State and Clemson are leaving.
right. Well, I mean, I think the ACC, I mean, they're not going to have like a big death like the Pac 12, but I think they will have a big blow to their conference. Now, they will snatch from the American to survive, and they'll eventually have to snatch from the Mountain West just to survive. I mean, try to get Boise State in
Yeah, they're
that
going to
conference.
wither.
Yeah. Oh, there's Shane. You're back.
Yeah.
And they'll
He dropped
probably
on me.
snatch San Diego State, UNLV, Nevada. I know people are going to be like, well, that's crazy. They're not going to add those schools. Yeah, well, nobody thought Cal Stanford would join the ACC. Nobody thought SMU would join the ACC. And yet
I
here
never
we are.
thought the ACC. I never figured the ACC would stretch that far west to grab teams that had no value to the ACC. I don't see any value for Cal and Stanford. Now, if Cal and Stanford were to come into the Big Ten or the Big 12, I could see some value there. I don't see no value for them in the ACC.
Yeah, the amount of money they're making
it.
and the travel cost has to be a real impediment to the programs moving forward. I just think Jackson, I'm going to ask you one more question as an outsider to like West Virginia. And I know this is a Big 12 show, but this has to do with if Florida State goes to the SEC and the SEC reaches out to a few schools in the ACC and Big 12, what schools would the SEC reach out to first? And you can throw Big 12 schools in there. And then, with that being said, what schools in the ACC are going to the Big 10 in your mind? I know that's a three-part question, but
that's a good question. That's something I've really thought about. I don't think Florida State is likely to join the SEC. I want it badly so that Florida State, Miami could stay, but I think Florida State is likely to go to the Big Ten. Who goes with them? Is it Miami? Is it Clemson? North Carolina? We don't know. So whoever
I don't
gets
think it'll be
left,
Miami because Miami's not AAU, and that's like a sticking point for the Big Ten. Is you got to be an AAU school. I realize Nebraska's not anymore, but they were when they got in, and so I just think that they're going to go for AAU schools, and here's why. And I could bring Tony on here to talk about this, and I'm sure Jackson, you've heard him talk about this. The Big Ten, they group everything together. Their libraries are all grouped together. So
yeah,
they're
their
going to want
research, yeah,
good, right? They're going to want good ones, like they're going to want AAU members to come in. They're not going to want a Miami team that is not an AAU member in their sharing their library. What are they sharing with them? There's nothing for them to share. So I'm just thinking like totally outside of the realm of football because conference realignment, I know we as fans look at it as a football conference. It's not. It's an athletic conference, and it's a conference that team, that school is a member of and shares a lot of things familiar with other programs. So It goes a lot deeper than football or basketball or any of that. I worry that I think TV markets are killing college football. Bottom line, period. I won't never back down from that. TV is killing college football as we know it with this conference realignment because TV's directing it and steering it, right? And what they're doing, they're hurting our youth generation. They're hurting our college students because guess what happens now? Stanford has to load their volleyball team up to go and play Florida State in the ACC. Then they got to come back and load their baseball team up to go to Florida State and play in the ACC. This is ridiculous. These students cannot do this, guys. They got schoolwork. That's the most important thing is an education. I really get mad about that.
So Jack, back to the question. So let's just think this out. So Florida State, as you said, would probably go to the Big Ten, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would leave the SEC in a position to pull a school from either the ACC or because it's going to be tit for tat. If the Big Ten is grabbing names, the SEC is going to grab some. So Miami.
MH5, I don't think Miami was. I think it was Florida State, wasn't it? Well, now he's saying this.
Miami and Notre Dame.
Last year. Miami was one of them. Okay, so then Florida State's not AAU. One of them is not AAU.
I think Miami is. I think Miami is. So Miami is. I think I just looked it up. So let's just, regardless of the AAU, let's just scenario wise. What I'm trying to get at is it's like a nuclear arms race. If the SEC pulls the trigger first, then the Big Ten's going to react, and vice versa. So you're not just having the Big Ten poaching 2-3 teams. You're going to have 6 teams, move because the ACC is going to, move their pawn after the Big Ten moves their pawn. So, Florida State goes, Miami goes, right? That's 2 teams there. Say they just go to different, SEC and the Big Ten. Then who do you have? Louisville. I'm thinking Louisville and Clemson. I think Louisville is closer to a Big Ten school. Clemson would be closer to what? An SEC school?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's where it gets muddy for me. And then you have, Pitt and Virginia Tech. Pitt is not an SEC school.
No.
Virginia Tech might be. I don't know. I know North Carolina State. Are they going to be left out? North Carolina gets in, with that being, 2 schools in the same state. Sometimes that causes, Oregon and Oregon State. All they had to do was wait a couple days, and they could have got the governor to kind of force, Oregon State to kind of be a package deal. That's what I heard through 3 different articles, but that was close to happening, and Oregon kind of threw Oregon State under the bus and just they could have positioned themselves in a manner much like they did at UCLA and USC, package deal. Because, guys, that would have been big. You know how much money they're losing at Oregon State with, it's going to be like, it's going to be like watching the water boys. That facilities are going to go to crap. They're going to have
and the mascot's going to be drunk passing out.
Yeah, and they're going to hire some guy that speaks Cajun you can't understand.
MH5, we talked about that earlier, and we said probably 20 to 24 teams. That's what we thought.
So just say 22 teams to be good. So just say 4 teams to each. So that's 8 teams out of either the ACC or Big 12. And you're telling me that you're going to take an NC State over a Oklahoma State, right? I don't think so.
Not likely. Yeah.
I mean,
what's that?
That Jeff Halfley move where he's leaving the head coaching position at Boston College for the Green Bay Packers DC job. I mean, 3 reasons why I think that happened was, 1, he felt like he was going to get fired or something like that. I have no idea. 2, he said with the landscape of college football, he is not happy with the way things are going.
Right.
Number 3
Mhm.
is a reason that I didn't think he never said anything publicly about, but I think he knows something we don't about where Boston College is heading. They're going to
Yeah.
be in
So
a
see,
worse path.
now here's the thing about it. If you would have came to me with that same comment back in, I don't know, 1999, I would have said, you're
Yeah.
crazier than hell.
Yeah,
Boston
they're
College is
hot.
one of the better programs in the country. What are you talking about? They, Doug Flutie. Hey, come on. What are you talking about? It's Boston College here. But you're right. I mean, these days, the way college football is moving, it's like fans don't matter. Who the hell cares if there's 1.8 million fans wanting to watch West Virginia football? Um, let's relegate them to nothing, and that's what TV's trying to do to the teams in the Big 12. I don't agree with it. I don't like it, but the media is doing it. The media is sitting there telling us as fans, don't watch a Big 12. They're horrible. There's no need in even talking about them. There's nobody there to compete for a national championship. There's no longevity to any team there to be at the top. That's what they're telling you. But that's what's the beauty of it. There is no longevity to any team in the Big 12 at the top. Because guess what? Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, West Virginia, Baylor, all those teams have been at the top before. So but if you look at the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan have been at the top. Who else? Penn State. Okay.
Yeah,
How
but
about
if
the
this
SEC, Alabama and Georgia. Oh well, then
if
everybody
this
says, well,
it's
Florida's
going to
been
be
there.
it's going to be has and has nots. If Florida State leaves, the Big 12 is going to have a little bit of a shift because you're going to have 4 teams potentially leave, just like the ACC is going to have a watered down. The Big 12 is still going to be in a little better position because they have Utah, but what teams are going to leave from the Big 12? In my eyes, it's going to be Oklahoma State is very, very attractive. TCU, Baylor, West Virginia. Those are the 4 teams I look at, and maybe Kansas State and Kansas if things are. Kansas looks a lot better now than it did 2 years ago on paper.
Right.
You think Baylor's recovered from that scandal in 2016?
No, they've dropped. They've dropped from a top 3 program in the Big 12 to kind of like relegated to 5th and 6th. So they're on the fringe. I would say Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, TCU are the top dogs, and maybe to go to the SEC or the Big 10, depending on Oklahoma State probably go to the Big 10. I don't know how it all depends on.
Would they still be that bad at Oklahoma?
What's that?
Would they still be that bad at Oklahoma? Oh man.
Yeah.
No, that's a joke. But in all seriousness, so
they'd still be that bad. Yeah, I assume Florida State, Notre Dame.
I still think the SEC. They're going to take a couple of teams out of the ACC, a couple of teams out of the Big 12 if they expand to 20 teams, right? Like we're talking. Big 10 will do the same thing. But if they don't expand, let's just say they just expand to 18 each, then the Big 12 continues to grow, and we just take on some teams out of the ACC. C. John says, I assume FSU, Notre Dame to the Big 10 and UNC, UV to SEC. I like these ads in Big 12 in order. Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Louisville, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, NC State, Syracuse, Duke. UConn basketball only. I don't think Boston College, Wake are even
That's
considered.
A great take.
Now, I think that Syracuse probably wouldn't be considered either at this point right now. I don't think Duke would either. Now, basketball wise, Syracuse and Duke, bring them on. But if you're talking about other sports, I don't see that. But I do see FSU, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville and Pitt. But out of them, two of them, FSU and Clemson, probably not coming to the Big 12.
Now they're going to be picked up by the two big names. But you know,
and that's
if you
why
can,
I think FSU lands in the SEC. I know everybody talks about Big Ten for FSU.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I see them in the SEC, and I know everybody says, "Well, Florida would never allow them." Listen, the SEC has a commissioner that would look at Florida and say, "Get in your corner, sit down, and shut up. We're going to do what we want to do." You vote for them to come in, and Florida would vote for them to come in. Unlike a lot of other conferences, the SEC has a conference commissioner that tells people what they're going to do. You know,
I mean, they did that with Texas A&M.
Right. They did that with Texas A&M when Texas was coming in. They just told Texas A&M, "Go to your corner and shut up." So they would do the same thing to Florida about FSU coming in the SEC. I just think FSU is more in line for the SEC. And then we do have to talk about Notre Dame. Here's what's going to happen to Notre Dame. Nothing. Not a damn thing's going to happen to Notre Dame. They're going to stay independent, do what they want to do, and guess what? They're Notre Dame. They can do that. I don't see them joining a conference ever. I'm sorry. I don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see Notre Dame ever joining a conference.
With all this alignment, I think the Big 12 has the possibility to come out way ahead of the ACC. They have a lot less to lose. They might lose a few teams to these conferences, but nothing like the ACC is going to lose. They're going to be a watered down version, relegated to the fourth conference. Okay, and I think West Virginia, if they land in the SEC, that's great. If they stay in the Big 12, that's great, because I think these other teams are going to be added to the Big 12 to allow them to have, two divisions. But from MH5 is saying, from a basketball perspective, getting North Carolina and Kentucky would help your mark get basketball media split from football. Absolutely. We're talking about money. Basketball will start bringing in some big banks.
The basketball money all goes to the NCAA. They don't have a thing to do with football money.
And that's why
they're with media deals. It doesn't have.
That's why SEC.
All NCAA money.
Yeah, that's why they're having that little joint meeting of the minds.
Here's the thing about it: you're having this joint thing. You're having this joint thing to take something away from the NCAA, and you're not inviting the one conference that gives more money to the NCAA than any other conference, and that's the Big 12 in basketball.
Yeah.
Right? We probably give more money to the NCAA than any other conference because of our basketball programs, and you're not inviting them to these meetings. What's up? I don't understand that. If you want to do away with the NCAA, fine. Okay. Do away with the NCAA. But all that basketball money, well, that's staying in the Big 12. It ain't coming to the SEC or Big 10. So, and there's basketball money is big. I mean, people talk about how big the football money is. The only reason you don't know about basketball dollars is because they go to the NCAA and we don't hear about them a lot. Believe me, them basketball dollars are huge. They fund every Division II and every Division III, football, basketball, hockey, every team in those conferences in Division II and Division III is funded by basketball. And
we crap on the NCAA, but you got to give them credit for that, because these Division III programs would not exist if it wasn't for the NCAA.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, without March Madness, there's nothing for those schools, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I've been fired up tonight. I've been fired up and excited for this show. I have been waiting all day. I wanted to go live, guys. I wanted to go live at noon today. I was so mad at noon. I was ready to go live then and just go at it, because I got so sick of reading everything on Twitter, everything on Facebook, watching media and watching YouTube channels and shows and then everybody just putting down the Big 12 and their media value, and there's nothing there to watch. That is such bull. We've got the best football in all of college football. Who the hell cares about Alabama and Vanderbilt? when you can have West Virginia and Oklahoma State. Who cares? I mean, seriously, you can have
Or
two
Kansas
good
and
football
Kansas
programs
State.
going at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just who cares? It's Kansas State and TCU. I would much rather watch that than Indiana and Ohio State any day.
Yep.
You know, it's just how I am. It's just so you can put down the Big 12 all you want to. I think we're a better media draw than people realize, and I think that maybe the numbers are not going to show it the first year without Oklahoma and Texas, but I don't think we're going to be too far off. I still think some of the most watched games we've heard about it all year long. Some of the most watched games out of conference games between Pitt and West Virginia, Texas and Alabama, right? Well, those same games are still happening this year. Now, Texas and Alabama not, but some of these out of conference games that were really big last year are going on again this year. So the Big 12 is going to be fine television viewing audience, and I don't understand these people saying it's not. MH5 says $1 billion basketball tournament. The participating schools only get paid out 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
I think with revenue sharing on the horizon, those Division II and Division III schools might be in trouble. That's exactly right. They will be in trouble if the NCAA is done away with. That's it. That no more Division II, Division III football, basketball, wrestling, hockey. All that's funded by basketball through the NCAA. And these programs can make some money on their own, but there's no way they could fund every sport. It's just impossible. So yeah, we much as we bitch about the NCAA, we kind of need them. We kind of need them, and because if we don't do it, Jackson, you're a SEC guy. Is the SEC going to give $50 million to Division II and Division III programs next year? Just to be giving it to them. Big Ten. They're going to do it.
I'm not too
Big
sure
12.
about that.
All right, and just like MH5 says here, it's $1 billion basketball tournament. It's $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's done away with. That money comes into these programs. How's the SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 going to make up for that in the ACC if they do away with the NCAA? Because somebody's got to pick up that mantle and continue to fund these programs. Because guess what? We need those programs. We need those programs because I didn't have any kids talented enough to play football for West Virginia or Alabama or any of those teams. But you know what? If I did have a kid that played football, and I didn't, I had basketball players. But if I did have a child that played football, and he wanted to go to Dartmouth and play football, I want that team to be able to be funded so that he could play football there. So it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, this close. My kid just this week got his first letter from a Division III school, and he's in 9th grade for football.
Yeah,
and it's to go to one of these clinics so they can evaluate you, and that's exciting for him. But if is in 4 years, I mean, this is we're on the precipice of a seismic shift. If
we are.
FSU, the dominoes are going to fall, guys. We're going to see this. But it's been a great show. I'll tell you what, it's been the fastest hour and 15 minutes.
Hour and 15 minutes. Wow, we have been on an hour and 15 minutes, haven't we? I really just one last comment here. I don't think SEC, ESPN, and Big Ten will play nice together. This partnership talk is just a quiet before the storm. As soon as the ACC cracks, it's going to be every conference for themselves. I agree with you.
See, John.
100%. See, John.
He's right.
Spoken like a
case gets settled.
Man of
I don't
wisdom.
know how these NCAA subsidiary payments of Division II, Division III can continue. And I know a lot of people have asked me about my interview with Joe Manchin. Remember, his wife was in the accident down in Birmingham, Alabama. Gail Manchin was in an accident. So Joe Manchin, take care of his wife right now. I've emailed Gail to find out how she is. She's not emailing me back, so maybe she's not got back online yet to do everything. But I will get Joe. Look, it's a long off season, so Joe will be here. I promise you. But hey, Jackson, you got anything else for us, brother?
Oh, that's about all. I'm just curious about what's going on with the rest of the off season. But I do know the Big 12 is going to be fine. So
So tell
that
us
I
what you
do.
got going on over on your channel.
Well, I got the latest episode of the Jacksonian from today where I had Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On College Basketball, where we discussed our take on the latest on North Carolina basketball. We also discussed whether 2024 will be Matt Brown's last season or not. And we talked a little bit about Gonzaga being blessed by the basketball gods with
Yeah.
this Saturday's matchup against Kentucky on CBS. And who's the last four in, the first four out, and who's got those last four buys? And what is Clemson beating North Carolina for the second time ever in Chapel Hill do
Wow.
for the Tigers? Does it get them into March Madness? Does it not? We don't know, but tune in to find out. It's a wild ride.
So we've
Awesome.
got
I
to
love
go tonight.
basketball talk.
We've got to go tonight, but next week we're going to take this subject up again. We may not spend an hour on it, but we're going to take the subject up again because I didn't even get to this. I'm going to put this up on the screen. I did not even get to this. This was something that was tweeted a long time ago, and I really want to talk about it. You can rewind and pause it and read it if you need to, but we're going to talk about that because that's a big thing. All right, Shane, any last thoughts for us here?
No, I'm going to be on the Triple B here later this evening, and also NFL banter. We're talking a little bit of the Super Bowl, minus some Taylor Swift news, I guess. But that's it for me, and I'll see you guys Monday.
Yes, sir. And so I will be back with you guys tomorrow night for Mountaineers Live at 8 o'clock. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.